right, folks, welcome to the latest episode of the Darrell Douglas Show, also known as Live from the Black House. I'm your host, Darrell Douglas. And the stock on this here podcast has been ticking up. Okay. You may remember a few weeks ago we had former mayor Anise Parker. Well, to my right, your left, we have perhaps the next Attorney General of the state of Texas, State Senator Nathan Johnson. Welcome to the
It
podcast.
is awesome to be here, and I love the introduction. I love the introduction.
Absolutely. So, Senator, we're in a different podcast space today. I would love for y'all to put in the comments, share, comment, like, tell me do you like this one or do you like the other one? And before we hop right in, first of all, thank you for taking the trek. What'd you take, 45?
I took a lot of highways. Yeah, yeah. We had a garbage truck on the highway. At the back door fell open. That kind of backed us up a little. But you know what? It's worth it. It's worth it to be here.
Absolutely. I was joking with you earlier. I was telling you we do that strategically here in the city of
That's right.
Houston. So what we do, we keep you on your toes. So there's going to be a chair, a mattress, a pallet, something on the freeway to make sure that you are paying attention and you passed the test.
I'm glad to be here without contributing to the wreckage on the road for sure.
Absolutely. So, wow, state senator, you represent some million people,
Almost 1 million people. That's right. It's bigger than a U.S. congressional district here in Texas.
and you're now running for attorney general. I want to start with you having the big idea to run for office. Take us back to that moment. Take us back to that space where you said, okay, I'm going to do it.
I'd wanted to do it, I think, for a couple of decades, my 30s, my 40s. And I'm a Democrat, and I lived in a region that hadn't elected a Democrat in several decades. And I had young children, and I was trying to establish a career. So between feeling like I needed to be there for my kids, I needed to be there for my family and have a job, and I would lose if I ran, those were very discouraging factors.
Mhm.
But the moment really, I think for a lot of people, the first election of Donald Trump was a moment, and it certainly was. But it wasn't enough to say, yeah, now's the time to run. But certainly it sent some sort of signal. 2 years before that, though, the long-term incumbent Republican, he'd been there for 20 years, John Corona, generally known as a real productive, moderate Republican, had gotten beaten in a primary by a guy to the far right named Don Huffines. And, some of y'all watching might know who I'm talking about. He beat John Corona, and he wasn't like really in tune with the district. So I thought, you know what? If I can bring across a commitment to, really productive leadership, being thoughtful, working hard, maybe some of these Republicans reject that sort of off the edge of the earth right wing thing, maybe enough of them to add up to the Democrats to win. And, what if Democrats actually turned out to vote? What if both of those things happened? And as it turned out, both of those things happened. Chose to run in 2018. I think Hillary Clinton had beaten Donald Trump in that area, and everyone thought I was nuts to run. I'm like, Hillary beat Donald. This shouldn't be that hard. And people still thought I was nuts. I told people more than a year before the race that I think I can win this by 5 points if everything goes right. We won by 8.
Wow.
And it's been a tremendous honor to be in that office.
So if you are to win this race, Ken Paxton is now running for the U.S. Senate. That opens up this seat completely.
Right.
That would switch it from red to blue, and you actually have experience doing that. You did that in your Senate district.
I like that lead up. Yeah, I really do. And people ask, what makes you think you can win? And I've done this before. It was at a smaller scale, but I'm reading the public. I'm reading the moment. I'm seeing what is lining up on the other side. And I'm betting that the public is going to go with a reasonable person who's going to work hard and do the right things for Texans every day. And I want just, political platitudes. We all hear them all the time. But really, when you look, I watch closely what happens in the Republican primary. How do I out MAGA the other guy, right? And I don't think that's going to fly in the office of Attorney General, or I wouldn't be running. I mean, running for office is really a drain on your life. It's more than an inconvenience. It's very hard. It's terrifying. And I have a job already working for the people of the state, and I love it. I love waking up and going to bed caring about what I do all day long. And if I don't get the opportunity to serve as the Attorney General, I will continue gratefully serving the state in the Senate. But if I do, man, what a difference it could make. And I think people are hungry for it. Democrats, independents, Republicans, everybody is hungry for some serious leadership in the Attorney General's office.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of people that are watching, a lot of people who tune into this thing. Some of them want to run for office. You know who you are. Put it in the comments. Um, Tell us what it's like when you're running for office. You had to win a primary first. Did you have an opponent?
I did. I had a primary opponent.
And eventually you get to the general. Take us back to the moment that you knew you had actually won
In the general
in
election?
the general election.
Oh, it was such an exciting moment. It was about 7 p.m. when they released the early voting. We did not know until the last minute. And the press, everybody had just written this race off for well over a year until a few months before the election, and the polling started coming back, not just my polls, because no one believed my polls, but when some other polls came back and showed it was a tight race, it suddenly became a big deal and very tense all along. And at 7 o'clock at night, the early voting results came out, which represents about half of the vote, and we were up 9 points. So at that point, mathematically, it was like,
You gotta go.
we
ahead.
got it.
You gotta relax.
And that
Go
came
ahead.
across the screen, and the crowd yelled. It was really pretty magical.
So walk the folks through it. Like, so you win. Do you get like a call from like state of Texas saying, report here for like literally what happens from that?
There is a freshman orientation, but I mean, it almost takes 4 years to learn where the bathrooms are. And I get lost in the basement of, there's something called the Capitol Extension, and all the directions look the same. I still get lost there, man. And then just learning how things work. What do you do besides like pontificate on TV, right? Is there real work that goes on here? And of course there is. But learning how to work on subjects, how to work with your staff. The state of Texas is very lucky in that the government actually funds having professionals work on legislation, whether you're Republican or Democrat in the House and in the Senate. In some states, they don't have that kind of depth. So you learn how to work with people and how to find topics where you can do some good, and you develop some friends very quickly. One of the first friends I made in the Senate was Boris Miles from here in Houston. He used to say, "Welcome to the Senate." Every time I expressed disappointment, he'd go, "Welcome to the Senate." And then one day something good happened, and he put a pin on my lapel and said, "My friend, welcome to the Senate." So you make friends. Is one of the things that happen.
I know you have Shakira Dennis with Next Wave Strategies on your staff. She's an amazing political consultant. But she and I both worked in the office of State Representative Dr. Alma Allen in the House. And the 2011 session, I'll never forget those late nights in the House. But in the Senate, the staff kind of had what we call banking hours. Like I remember,
Those must have been days. Not my staff.
Like I remember, we were 9 and 10 o'clock in it, and I remember one of the first times they passed 6, and so you're in the Senate, you're running for Attorney General. What does the Attorney General actually do, other than people know child support, and during the Obama administration, it was Paxton suing Obama or suing
That's
Biden.
right.
But what actually does the
That's a great question. And, a lot of people don't know that the Attorney General's office takes care of child support. Half of the 800 or so attorneys in the Attorney General's office are working to make sure that children are supported in the event that the parents split. And there are many things that are just kind of routine that the Attorney General's office has to do. But, break it into a few different categories. People often think about the Attorney General's office as the crime fighter, the one who, goes after the drug dealers and violent crime of all sorts. And really, that's your local district attorneys. The Attorney General's office does not have prosecutorial discretion independently to go after these. The Attorney General's office should, however, be working with local district attorneys. One of the problems we've had with the current Attorney General is particularly in the urban areas, he thinks it's his job to make it difficult for district attorneys to fight crime. So the Attorney General is there to provide resources to keep our streets safe, to keep our communities safe, and plays an active role in that. And for that reason, it's important to have good relations with district attorneys. I plan to, that'll be one of my absolute focuses while I'm in there. Another thing people don't much think about when you think about an attorney general is the prices you pay for things, right? Attorneys general are the guardians of the market, right? Free market competition. And what we all know is that really competitive markets produce good results, and really not competitive ones don't. And if you look at what's happened to prices and quality of things in America and things in Texas, prices have gone up, quality's gone down, choice has gone down, because we have not really had enforcement of the really good state and federal antitrust laws. Look for an attorney general who's going to make markets work for people, not for the shareholders. And you're not against shareholders, but I want competition in the marketplace, and I will be looking for that. And then how about corruption? How about not participating in it? How about instead investigating it and ensuring that it is prosecuted, and most of the time making sure it doesn't happen in the first place? Finally, the Attorney General is important to the functioning of government overall. The Attorney General is the legal opinion of the state. What does the law mean? What should this agency be doing? What's their discretion? What's their charge? And the Attorney General issues legal opinions on all sorts of subjects. Finally, the job is to get as many headlines as you can, which is many stupid. No, that's not the job. It's what we're seeing, though. It's what we're seeing. We're seeing like headline after headline of these absurd crusades that are wasting taxpayer dollars and terrorizing people in all sorts of ways. The Paxton Attorney General's office has not been bad in every respect. They've actually done some good work going after big tech. And if I'm Attorney General, I'll be talking to people who are filing those lawsuits and asking them to stay on.
Wow.
In fact, the first thing that I will do is ask everybody to reapply. If you're here for ideological reasons, you can go apply somewhere else. I hear ICE is hiring, maybe go talk to them. If you want to work for me, you're going to serve the people of this state. And if you're good at your job and you've got institutional knowledge and experience, I value you. But we're not here to get headlines. We're here to make this state better for everybody.
Absolutely. This is going to be one of the very first elections in 2026 where we have multiple statewide offices open.
It's an exciting election year. I really think so.
We're gonna have, you have the Attorney General spot. You have a very competitive U.S. Senate race, and you have races down ballot that are very exciting as well. You got a really good team around you. How are you going to win in the first, statewide Democratic office
in more than 30 years? Yeah. It's been 1990 was the last time that Democrats won the Attorney General's office. Wow. It's also the last time they won. The Democrats ran a sitting legislator for that office. The knowledge of government, I think, is very helpful in that. So how are we going to win? First of all, you were talking about what an exciting year it is because we have a lot of offices up and we've got a lot of really competitive, good candidates in the U.S. Senate race, in the governor's race, in the Attorney General's race. We're going to have them, I think, across the board. And I think we're going to have really high-quality candidates in everything from congressional races, county commissioners, state representative, state senator. All the different races, I think, this year are going to draw some real high-caliber Democratic candidates. And it's what's been missing for a long time. We had that to some extent in 2018. We had Beto O'Rourke run an incredible campaign with exhaustive work, but we also saw, at least up in North Texas in particular, we flipped 2 Senate seats and 9 House seats, where you had now Congresswoman Julie Johnson, former Rep. John Turner, me, Colin Allred beating Pete Sessions, and I think voters get excited when they see you've got an array of choices. This is not just one long shot person you're voting for. You got a whole ticket right here. And so, whereas we've had these headwinds just blowing in our faces politically, largely because of the mistakes of the National Democrats, and just I think the political times were just against us. And right now, I think it's strong tailwinds. I think that pushes us up to near 50-50, right? But how do we get across 50 when we haven't done it before? And the answer is have multiple competitive candidates who are saying the things that people need to hear, which are the true things about Democrats. I think some of the truth about how good we are has been buried. We are not just the party of compassion. We certainly are that. We recognize that life is not fair to everybody, and we need to make sure everybody not just has like a chance at succeeding. I want people to succeed.
Very refreshing.
I mean, I don't want some, every kid can go to school and be the only kid that comes out of that school. I guess everyone had a shot. No, I want all of them to succeed. And this idea that you have to be extraordinary to make it in America is wrong. That's not what we're trying to do. We create the environment in which people succeed or fail. And Democrats take that seriously. We invest in people. We invest in schools. We invest in electricity. We invest in healthcare, the things that you absolutely need to run your daily life, transportation, and civil rights and individual rights, human rights, constitutional rights, so that you have your dignity. And when you have dignity and you have the means to succeed, then you participate fully, and then we're all doing great. That is not a pie-in-the-sky dream message. That's the real deal. And what we've seen on the Republican side, where they're claiming fiscal responsibility and they're claiming to be better for business, they've been reckless with money. They've been reckless with tax expenditures, and they've neglected the things that I think are going to set us up well in the future. Not entirely, and I don't want to just trash Republicans, because I have a lot of very good friends that are Republicans, and many of them are in the legislature, and I work with them. But the element that is in control right now is making Republicans sad, because they cannot act with independence. And you're going to see a bunch of Democrats. We are not going to agree with each other on everything as Democrats, and that's great, because everybody's different. Let's appeal to everybody. But you put us all together, and I think it could be a seismic election when Democrats win statewide.
Absolutely. And you're doing it right. We're in October of the year before the election, and you were in Harris County in Houston, Texas. And Senator, you've got some really cool people watching. You've got Al Lloyd. He's an at-large Ford candidate. You've got Katrina Rhodes. You've got Professor July McShay. You've got Rosie McCutcheon, who's on here. I'm watching you all on live. So you've got people that are paying attention to this race. I want to talk about your time on the Senate. So eventually you go in, you raise your right hand, you do all of that. What are some of the moments that really, or I would say, here's the way I want to frame this question. What's one thing you were shocked to learn when you became a state senator that you weren't expecting?
It's so political. Nah. It's shocking sometimes how well you can get along with people that you disagree with. You read about these preposterous positions in the paper, and they're real and they're there. And some of it, they really believe it, and some of it, they're just doing it for politics. And it was really interesting to learn how to maneuver around that and try to find some things that'll make sure that a baby doesn't go deaf, right? I mean, no, you want to like fight against vaccines or whatever it is, but how do we make sure babies don't go deaf, right? And it was interesting, and I don't know if it was shocking, but to see how interested people were at working together on those kind of things. And then there's shock sometimes at how good ideas can just get killed because they don't come from the right person. And that's frustrating, because sometimes I feel like I'm that right person, and that this bill would have moved if I were a Republican. And what we often see, actually, a lot of the good things that have come out of the legislature the past few years are things that Republicans moved that Democrats started 6 years earlier, right? Extended maternal Medicaid benefits. Democrats have been trying to do that for 10 years, and that comes along, right? More funding for public education. Democrats have been trying to do that for 10 years. The whole approach to trying to have a more reasonable, a more compassionate regulatory regime for THC products, particularly medicinal use. Jose Menendez in San Antonio had been pushing that legislation for a long time when Republicans finally rolled with it. So it was, I suppose I was naive to think that a good idea was just a good idea. And I'd like, actually, as Attorney General, to help move that narrative away from being this is a Republican idea and a Democratic idea, which is usually nonsense, to more like, it's a good idea, let's work on it.
Yeah.
That's not where we are in Texas right now. We need to get back there.
Absolutely. Even nationally, not where we are. But
way nationally.
Yeah.
We still do some good stuff in Texas on a bipartisan basis. We've got some great water legislation. We do some good stuff.
Teachers got raises.
Teachers got raises, belatedly, and we could do more and better, and we could do a lot of things better in public education. we have taken steps forward there.
Hmm. I'll say this. My very first job out of high school was working for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I saw a billboard that said, make $1,700 a month. This is in 2005. Make $1,700 a month, be a correctional officer. So I went to Huntsville, me and my mom actually. She had been unemployed for like a year. And I think at week 51, you get like a letter in the mail that's like, hey, your benefits are about to end.
Yeah.
So she ended up joining too. What was your first job?
I was cleaning the French fry vat at McDonald's.
Okay.
Yeah, my
Okay.
first job was working at McDonald's.
Can we get an exclusive? What's up with the machines, with the ice cream machines?
Man,
Do
I'm
you
so
know?
old. I don't know. We did have the ice cream machine back there, but yeah, I worked part time at 16. I had a series of part time jobs,
Okay. Okay.
and then went on to do things like be a lawyer and stuff like that.
So what made you want to be a lawyer? How did you make that decision?
Just blind naivete as a kid. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was an engineering physics major and realized that I didn't like it. It was too practical, so I was just like, the theoretical stuff, I'll do the physics major thing. And by the time I was about to graduate with a physics degree, I realized that I felt like I needed to be working with people more. What could I possibly do? What would make sense? What would be meaningful? And law school just seems like such a grown-up, responsible thing, and I think lawyers make a living. I didn't know what else to do, and I loved law school.
Really?
I didn't study enough.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
What was a lot of my friends, Tara Taylor, who's probably going to catch this a little later, a bunch of folks that want to be lawyers. They all talk about buying these booklets and taking the LSAT and all this. What was the hardest part about your legal experience
as a law student or as a lawyer?
as a law student and leading up to it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as a law student, it's sort of like physics. I was just interested in the kind of the ideas, the theoretical stuff. Some would say, "Oh, you just like the bullshit." I'm like, "Well, no, I mean, okay, yeah." But legal theory was very interesting to me. Constitutional law, criminal law, all of it. And the tests are much more, what is the answer, right?
Really?
And that's why people, they get books and you can learn this stuff. If you work really hard and study the right stuff, you can get through law school with very, very good grades. And you can also be a really, really thoughtful person. But there's more to it than just being a thoughtful person. And I think I was young, I was naive, I was 22 years old. And I think some 22-year-olds enter law school and just kill it, right? But I think a lot of the best students had gone out and worked for a couple of years, and they approached law school with a whole different attitude, much more practical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I just had a little bit of maturing to do, and I think it was humbling somewhat to be around all these really hardworking, smart people, and that was good for me too.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking a little earlier, so we talked a little bit about teachers. So my younger brother, Devontae Hicks, is band director at Alief Hastings. I'm sorry, he went to Hastings. Alief Elsick High School, the Mighty Ram Band, and he, musician. He plays all the instruments. I went to Westbury, where I was in the band, the
What'd you play?
Sensational Sounds of the Southwest, the trumpet.
I was going to guess that.
Yeah, let me tell you, I'm doing a podcast, so I'm clear I'm a trumpet player. They have all of these like archetypes around the different instruments, but I hear you too are a musician.
I had a life as a musician. I studied piano my whole life, and then eventually I quit being a lawyer and I wrote music.
Whoa. Okay.
And then went back to.
You quit law, became a musician.
Yeah, it was a really goofy road, fascinating one. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but I was just I played piano. I wrote music. It was terrible. I knew it was terrible. I went to law school. I started playing the piano a lot because the music building was next
Is that
door.
where you started? You started playing?
No, I started as a
younger.
kid.
Yeah.
But I was never real serious, and of course, until I went to law school. Then I started
You
practicing
really
a
leaned
lot.
into it. was like you were using those muscles, so that was like a good.
It was an escape, I guess,
Mhm.
and I finally had a teacher who, told me you're no good at all, but but if you applied yourself, you really could be, right?
Yeah.
So that was a great experience, and it helped me write a little bit better music, and it was still bad music, and then I met this internationally acclaimed symphonic and opera composer, and said, hey, can I? And I was a young lawyer at this
Yeah.
point, um, and not particularly digging it at that point either. And I said, "Can I come study with you?" And I brought him some of my music. He says, this is this is bad, but but I'm surprised you could do this with no training.
Yeah.
Do you want to study?" And so I spent, while I was a lawyer, I spent several years kind of apprenticing under him, so I could someday write classical music. And it took me several years to figure out I would never make a
Yeah.
living
Yeah.
in classical music, having started so late in life. So I tried to break into film and television scoring. 'Cause that's really how you make a living. And I kind of set a clock, and I didn't get there in time. So I quit. And the day that I quit, I had been doing a little bit of part-time law work. I had since quit my law job. I was married at the time, and my wife was kind of supporting us, and I felt the obligation to start making a living. So, went back to being a lawyer, but the building that was owned, where I was going to go lease a law office, because there was this client that had 40 boxes of documents and wanted me to take a case to trial. I'm like, all right, I got a client. When I was talking to the people about leasing the office, we just started talking about music. And, they asked if I had a website. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take it down. And they called me the next day and said, before you start that law practice, why don't you come talk to us? And it happened to be the company that created the American version of Dragon Ball Z. And they said, we like your stuff. Come talk to us.
Whoa. Go back. Did y'all just hear what he said? Okay, say that
Is-
one more time. So,
I quit law, and the day I tried to quit law, I got my big break.
Dragon Ball Z. That is, I mean, I think you're gonna hit a niche audience. I think this niche audience is gonna be just what you need to push you over. I see my Uncle Blue. Uncle Blue, Milton Douglas is on. Um, so okay, take me back to that moment. So you hit your big break in music.
Yeah, finally. And I had given up, and I had never heard of Dragon Ball Z or anime. And I just got these videos. I'm like, wow, I don't really know what to do with this, but I don't have any other breaks. So I took the job, and we were looking at other properties, and there was a while trying to sort out what was going to happen. And then the producer came and said, look, there's 67 episodes of this show that have never been done, and we want to take it a new direction. Can you take this a new direction?
And taking a new direction, like how, like what were you
Musically.
gonna? So literally, if I go back and I watch some episodes of Dragon Ball Z in English,
Yeah.
that's your music.
67 of 300 and some episodes are my music.
So 1 in 5.
Probably.
That
And you
is-
hear a big difference, right? I tried to use what I called orchestral, right?
Okay.
I used a full orchestra, but I also used a lot of electronic sounds, and sometimes I like electrified a cello and
Okay.
did some stuff. And I think the audience just hated it at first
Uh-huh.
because it was very different, and maybe it wasn't that good actually. But once I kind of hit my stride after a certain number of shows, then the fans really got mad and didn't like it. And then I stopped looking at the reviews. And like a year or so later, I looked at it, and they're like, Nathan Johnson's great.
Wow, that is so cool.
I think I got a little better at it, and I think the audience got accustomed to my sound, and it turned into a pretty fun gig.
I'll say, so if there are any Sega Genesis players out there, like real 90s kids, okay, Sega Genesis, I'm talking about Sega with Sonic and Tails, that one. There were some bangers, okay? There were some bangers on those different levels on Sonic the Hedgehog, like musically. Yeah.
I had a few good notes here and there.
And I wonder if some of the folks that are watching this remember this. I had to be about 30. I had to be about 32-ish, and I had the bright idea that I was, I also play the piano, but I play the trumpet and saxophone. I was like, I'm gonna play the double bass. So I buy a double bass.
Wow.
And
At age 30, you bought a double
it was
bass?
like 32. So this was 2017, and I'm 39 now. So take what is that, 8 years? So yeah, 31. 31. I actually, like, I go head first, Senator. I'm just like, I'm learning the double bass. And you would think, because I play the bass and the treble on the piano,
Mm.
and I should be able to do this. But as you get like older, it's harder to learn new things.
Well, this is like a string on a piece of
Yes.
wood.
Yes.
Not a key.
Right. Right. So I had to learn like the mechanics,
Yeah.
as well as and it's fun, like playing the trumpet. You play the part of the song that people whistle, but to accompany is something
Yeah, the
else.
bass, no one's whistling
Nobody's
the bass,
listening to
right?
bass, right? And most people can't follow the bass line.
But it shows your versatile mind
Mm-hmm.
that works kind of with the tactile operations, that you just couldn't cure yourself of the desire to make beautiful sounds
Yeah.
with real things.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
So going back to the Senate, you're one of 31 people, and you've been in office since
2019 was my first session, so I won
2019.
in 2018 in January 2019.
What were some of those like pie in the sky moments? Like, when did it really hit you that you're a state senator? Like, did it? I mean, because I'm pretty sure like you win and you get, you go to orientation, but when was it like, oh my gosh, like I'm a state senator? What were some of those moments?
I think it was when I had people working for me. All these smart people working, doing like really important stuff,
Yeah.
and they're doing it to help me succeed.
Yes.
And that was kind of humbling. It's like, wow. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm no smarter than they are.
Yeah.
And yet I'm the mouthpiece on the floor. And there were moments when either you pass your first bill and you're real proud, or you figure out something that no one else does,
Mhm.
or you get in a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of a verbal fight, of
Verbal
course,
fight,
right?
yeah.
And those are kind of exciting. I remember I lost my cool one day because somebody pulled some stuff on the Senate floor that wasn't cool, and the dean of the Senate, John Whitmire here in Houston, said, "You're not a freshman anymore,"
Yeah.
and that was cool.
Yeah.
And I actually said that to his successor, Molly Cook, who is now. She just finished her first term as a senator.
Yeah.
She did something fantastic on the floor. I said, "You are not a freshman
There
anymore."
you go.
So
Yeah.
there are moments that stand out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's when you stand your ground, and it could be that you're standing your ground against pressure, from anybody. I mean, there's a lot of high pressure stuff that happens,
Yeah.
and you know that you're going to catch heat from the right or from the left or people back home, or that your base might applaud and love what you're doing, but it's going to compromise your ability, and you're trying to figure out all this stuff out at once,
Mm.
and you stand your ground,
Yeah.
and you make your decision, and you go with it. And that's also, you take a deep breath and say, you know what? That's what I signed up for.
Yes.
It's hard decisions. You take hard votes. But ultimately, you have to be able to look back at your session and say, I did what I thought was right.
How do you balance it all? Like, I could imagine as a state senator, you're not only going back and forth between Austin and the DFW, but you also have different audiences, right? You have advocates, you have activists, you have municipal electeds and county electeds. How do you balance all those irons in the fire?
This is a really sophisticated podcast. Because most people don't really recognize the delicate balance that we have to achieve all the time. And you do have advocates, and you have analysts, and you have lobbyists, and you have industry, you have grassroots, you have people on the extreme right, the extreme left, extreme middle. You have local governments that need your help, and sometimes I represent 9 cities. Sometimes the local governments don't agree with each other. Sometimes the Democrats don't agree with each other. I did a lot of work on the grid, and the grid experts don't agree with each other, right? And some of them, give you money to get reelected, and I just sometimes don't even look at those things because I don't want it to affect my thinking. So how do you balance it all? I'm still working at it. It's after 4 sessions, I feel like I can balance it pretty well. And I made some mistakes early on by taking some of those difficult votes. and then having to, call people afterwards and say, hey, here's what went down. Call people first, especially when you've got two groups that you really respect that really disagree with each other. Bring them in. Call them up and say, listen, here's the issue. I think I know where I am on this. Where are you on it? I'm going to make somebody mad. I just want you to know I'm with you. I don't think I can be with you on this vote, right? And you have to manage people's expectations and understanding. I've taken a couple votes that I think people were angry about, and I called them and explained it, and they go, oh, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. Why didn't I call them first?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And so I learned on the job, and I saw some people starting to say stuff before something was coming up, and I just called them up and I said, here's the scene on the inside. Shush. Let me do this, because here's what I'm going to drop next week, and you're going to go, yeah. Right. So I think the answer to how to balance it is actively.
Yeah.
And you must continuously maintain contact with people who have an interest in the work that you're doing. And deal with them respectfully, and sometimes get them dealing with each other.
Yeah. I remember the one session that I worked, the representative had been working on a bill, and the organization, the nonprofit organization that was like really spearheading this bill, I'm trying to watch my words carefully, but so the bill passes the House, and they're ready to send emails and do all this hullabaloo, and it's like, could you stop?
Like there's another chamber.
Because we need it to go well over there. So just simmer down.
Yeah.
Because it's not, and a lot of folks don't understand the nuance of that. And so, in Texas, the legislature, it's an odd thing. It's every other year. And I feel like the further we go, there's less and less civic education. So, in your opinion, how do we get people to pay more attention or to better understand how the sausage?
Honestly, I think people tend to care about what they know about, right? And most news media does not give you information about what's happening in state government. You've been there, you've worked there. It's actually a really fun show. I mean, you could totally make a reality show or even a fictitious, drama, but the truth is stranger than fiction, right? It's a fun show, and it's really important stuff. There are a couple publications. The Texas Tribune does an excellent job of covering things that affect the state. Just pick that up and read it a couple times a week, and you can get hooked on it just like you can on a TV show. You get to know the characters, and there are some characters in there. And then the intrigue, you're talking about the nuance back and forth, if it comes out of the House, shush, we've got to get it through the Senate, or be loud so that you can push it through the Senate, and then welcome, the Senate's a hard place to move things. The whole legislature is structured to be hard to move bills. We file 7,000 or 8,000 bills, and like 1,000 of them pass. So it's a legislative killing field out there. And what I think would be interesting for people to observe is that it's not something that, imagine you walk into a movie and watch it for 5 minutes and walk out and tell people what you think of the movie. Like, oh, no, there's a beginning and there's an end. And any slice in time, things that people vote on in March, April, May, bills that are filed, the way they get changed, what happens in hearings, it's all a product of the back and forth between the two chambers and what's happening in the media, what's happening in Washington, what's happening in the governor's office, lieutenant governor's office. It's quite a drama. And I think it's worth people's time to see things as it's moving through the process and kind of really develop a more, I think a closer attachment to what's happening in the state legislature would be rewarding for people and good for the process. Because we also move a lot of not very good legislation. And I would love to have more public support for killing that stuff or reshaping it into something useful, which is sometimes as Democrats we have to do. How do I make this less bad? Or how do I take the 17 good things out of these 30 and beef them up?
And sometimes it's as simple. I remember there was a bill that we were working on, and it changed from a shall to a may. Huge difference.
Huge difference.
Those are like the little things.
especially with the Attorney General's office,
Yeah,
right? You can
yeah.
have a statute that says the Attorney General may blank, 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 blank.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you're like,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's called discretion, and that's very powerful.
yeah.
If it's a shall, well, that takes away from the Attorney General sometimes the ability to move resources where they ought to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
that the choice of shall and may is a very important one. I don't know if you can do a whole episode on that, but maybe.
Yeah, good. And then before we get to the closing, and I thank you so much for coming down here because I truly believe that this in this medium is the way that we get people to pay attention.
I am so grateful that you're doing this and have these awesome people watching because I think you're right.
And it's really going to be not necessarily those that are watching now, but like the clips that will guide people to you that that don't know you already is really where the magic is. In closing, I got two questions for you. One, what advice do you have to someone who's probably watching right now, right? Because the people who watch stuff like this are like in this crowd. They're a precinct chair, they're a volunteer. They really eventually want to run for office. They want to run for city council. They want to run for precinct chair. Where should that person start, or what piece of advice do you give to that person?
I think it's very difficult to get into office. It takes luck, among other things, and that opportunity is not going to open for everybody. But once you get there, you want to already know and understand your community.
Mm-hmm.
So the advice, maybe the one non-accidental thing I did in my life was decide that if I was ever going to get into office, I was going to understand the community. And you go out and you start volunteering at all sorts of different things. Go teach kids to read in public schools, serve on a county board, work in parks, whatever you need to do. Understand the whole community.
Mm-hmm.
And very often, those efforts will not only will be very, very rewarding to you, and they also make connections and open doors and illuminate pathways for you to get where it is that you want to go. And you may find on that process, you're like, "No, actually, I don't want to run for office.
Yeah.
I'm doing so much good over here." And I want
Yeah.
to emphasize there's a lot of ways to do good in the world. Running for office is one of them.
Yeah.
But a lot of the best people that I know in the world that do the most for the world are not in public office.
Absolutely.
And those who are in public office, make sure you're ready and able to withstand winning.
Absolutely. And finally, in closing, tell folks why they should consider you and how they can get in touch or how they can donate if they would like.
Thank you very much. My name is Nathan, and we live in Texas. So if you can remember that, it's Nathan at Nathan for Texas, and that's the same. It's at Nathan for Texas for all my social media channels, at least on the campaign side. Why they should consider voting for me, or why I ultimately leave it to the people to decide. There is a primary election. There is a general election. I think the case on the general election side is pretty obvious. Ken Paxton's not running for re-election, but there's been an established pattern of abuse of the office. And when they're not abusing the office, they're using it overtly as a political machine. And the Attorney General's office should not be a political machine. It's way too important. It's an independently elected executive office, and it's being used to advance, in this case, the MAGA agenda. It shouldn't be advancing an agenda. It should be upholding the rule of law and the constitutional framework that was set in place 250 years ago for this country and 200 years ago for this state. It's not happening. It is not happening. And I as much as I can get along with my Republican colleagues, I honestly don't see how any Republican can succeed Ken Paxton and do anything other than what they're told, because it's what everybody in this country is doing right now. They're doing what they're told. They're all just messengers for the Trump administration. I'll just stop right there. I don't think a Republican who's really intent on doing this job right could possibly get elected on the Republican side. So the Democrat is going to be the choice. Now, the Democrat that you want coming out of the primary is one who's prepared to do the job, who understands government, because you work closely with state government, you work in state government, you hold state government accountable, you direct things, and you make markets work. So understanding commerce is important. Also being able to win an election, I think, is important. And as you pointed out at the very beginning, in 2018, I saw something out there and I figured out how to navigate it and flip a seat convincingly. That had been 32 years at that time Republican. And I'm seeing it right now. And I would love to come roaring out of this primary and deliver a victory for the Democratic Party and, more importantly, for the state in November of 2026 and get this Attorney General's office back to doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Wow. Well, folks, you heard it here. You heard it here on the Black House. Very, very impressed with State Senator Nathan Johnson. Nathan at nathanfortexas.com.
That is right.
Nathan at nathanfortexas.com. Again, thank y'all so much for joining us today. I have been Darrell Douglas. This has been Live from the Black House. Thank you and good evening.